Been really looking forward to my guest today, Jon Corl, National Emmy Award-winning producer, senior producer for NBA 2K. Such a successful franchise that we've all played. I certainly have. In fact, I played with Adam Morrison in 2K7 when he was with the Bobcats, and I wanted to bring out this jersey to show Jon. So we're going to have a lot of fun. Not only talk about Jon's career, but we're going to learn about him from his personal life and how that intersects into his work life. And we're going to get a full look at who he is. On the On to Something podcast, I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio, on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. So Jon, first of all, you are on paternity leave. So I'm grateful for the fact that as busy as you are, you do have a little bit of free time.
Yep.
I wanted to throw this question at you first as we welcome you in here. With you working in video games and on 2K in such a successful franchise, if you were to put yourself in the game, why would I want to make sure that I go with you and I pick you on my team?
You would pick me because, believe it or not, as someone who actually makes a game, I am not very good at the game. So we have a lot of cheats in there to help us develop the game over time. But I would be a good teammate because the one thing I have mastered is the pick. I would set you up to no end with good picks so you can kind of get to the hoop and do your thing. Pick and rolls. I would help your points per game average tremendously.
I feel like you setting good picks might be synonymous for what you are like in the workroom, what you are like in life, and that you love to set other people up and have success. I was reading something about you, Jon, where they basically said, this was on LinkedIn, and somebody was giving you a review, that in sort of using their words, you push all the right buttons to motivate others. So what is it that you do that leads to getting the most out of the people around you?
I go back to the idea that if the people that I'm working with don't feel supported, then I'm not going to succeed. No matter kind of what the hierarchy or structure is, there's people out there who kind of do a good job managing up and managing down in terms of, dealing with bosses or subordinates. I try to really put people into positions where they can succeed and really being honest about, where their strengths are and making sure that they feel supported. Like the one thing the one thing I'm really afraid of is if someone hesitates coming to me with a problem, no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what the source of the problem is, if they are, if someone else is. Like, if there's hesitation for them to come forward and ask me something and be earnest, that's a real problem for me. Like, I need to make them feel invited and not be afraid to fail too, right? I mean, because in the end, we all make mistakes. You watch a live broadcast, and that's the funny thing with like NBA 2K is when they brought me on, they were kind of reverse engineering a TV broadcast, and they didn't realize there were so many mistakes in a broadcast, and that's okay, but it's what gives it kind of like that unique fingerprint for each broadcast.
What is the way in which you evaluate yourself? Others come to you and you want them to make sure that they're open in a dialogue and having those conversations about how they can get better. But what is your approach to how you evaluate yourself through this process?
If everyone else around me is good and they know where they're going and how to get there, then I'm in good shape. That's the ultimate key. If everyone's running around and they don't know what they're doing, then I've failed. As a manager, coworker, subordinate, any other roles. So,
Jon Corl is with us. I'm Bryan Fenley. One place where you are not running around and you are not failing is you being a father. And this is a new thing for you. Henry is your first child, a little less than a year old here, and your wife, and both of you are having a lot of fun with this. What has that done, fatherhood, in showing a new side of you that others would not have seen from who you were beforehand?
Most people know I'm pretty much a goofball to begin with, so that's no surprise. I think it's, that's a good question. Hopefully, like, none of it's actually really a mystery. Hopefully, like the way I am with Henry, supporting him, or identifying, what he's done wrong. Not just by saying, the one thing I've learned with dealing with Henry from the get-go is not just saying no. And that goes on the professional side too, is like, you just don't go no. You start off with, to me, it's like, that's not what you should be doing, or that's not for Henry. You have better options out there. And there is kind of a bit of a parallel between, guiding a child to make better decisions versus, against someone who's just getting into the workforce and, making better decisions. So hopefully, if someone were to kind of pull back and see if there's something a little different in me, with Henry, they'd be a little disappointed in that, like, hey, you know what? He's kind of the same person, just, he makes more interesting sounds, and more sound effects with his mouth, as opposed to, like, at work, he can't do and stuff like that.
Well, of course, he picked that up from you, and then
Yeah.
you blame it on him. But so in work, obviously, with working on NBA and the 2K franchise, you got the cheat codes. You talked about that. So if you were to implement some cheat codes into being a father, and now that you've got a little bit of experience doing this, what would those cheat codes look like?
The cheat code would be being able to hit a pause, right? To hit a pause in life, and just give yourself the ability to, like, step back for a second and just look at the situation. Because the one thing I've realized pretty quickly is, even though kids can't talk, they're telling you something, and you just can't get caught up in your own kind of, internal hysterics. You got to take a deep, hit the pause button and take a step back and look at the situation and really see what he's trying to say, to the point where, when we drove cross country with him after he was first born, and now in the house, we have over our staircase a big, black and white canvas that just says pause.
Wow.
Period. And it helps. It's just, he's telling you something. It may be gobbledygook, or, you can't make sense out of it at the onset, but if you just look for that pattern recognition, it's there, and you just got to kind of parse it.
Yeah, those are moments that you don't want to forget. You want to cherish them. And by pausing, it helps you fully realize how cool the moment is in its raw self at the time. If I were to hit the pause button to the moment you met your wife and you're able to relive that, let's go back to that. And what?
Oh boy. So this is actually a pretty good story. And we've told this to numerous people over the years. So we were at ABC Sports. This was 2001. And I'd already been at ABC Sports for a couple of years. I was contract, so I kind of, leave ABC, go do NBA on TNT, go do college basketball on ESPN and some other stuff. And then, I come back, in September. And this is back when we relied on our desk phones. Not everyone had a cell phone. It wasn't ubiquitous like it is now. We relied on our desk phones to talk to teams, to talent, to, whatever. And so I got handed for the first time a different extension. So I was like, okay, yeah, I got a different extension this year, different phone. What I didn't do is, I didn't go back and clear the voicemail on my previous extension. So it was sitting on a random desk somewhere, still with my, passcodes and greeting and all that kind of stuff. A couple of weeks go by, I'm sitting there at my desk, just minding my own business. And this person walks up, and she's just running around. It's, it looks like it's her first day. And she's just kind of like, she's like, hey, do you know where this guy Jon Corl is? Clearly frustrated. And I just kind of turn around in my chair and I go, you got him. And I look up and she just looks at me like, can you please just clear your passcode? I can't use the phone right now, and I need to make some phone calls from the get-go. And that was our first interaction. She was frustrated with me, and I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, clearing my voicemail. And it was all uphill, downhill from there. So yeah, that's how we met, was amongst the many production assistant cubes at ABC Sports on the 12th floor in New York City.
So clearly what you did is you disputed the notion that the first impression is the best impression, because even though it
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
the best version of yourself there, you were able to redeem yourself. And how were you ultimately able to say, hey, you know what? I want to have a life with this girl. This is
It,
something.
it yeah, it was peaks and valleys. Like I was still, young and trying to figure it out. And, she was, she's a no nonsense kind of person. And so, yeah, it took, it took a little time, but, that's the kind of the nice part about, ABC Sports at that time is, you know, you, would never have the option of working from home, and everything was just kind of right there. And you're kind of, I don't want to say forced, but you become kind of a bit of a family on that floor, and everyone was very close. And so there was plenty of opportunity for me to kind of improve that first impression. Um, and I needed to, because clearly I failed at the outset. So
Well, you have not failed since. You have not failed over the course of your career. And during those years with ABC Sports, obviously the ABC now has this deal with ESPN. So it's ESPN on ABC. But
yep.
when you were with AB Sports at its height and you saw some of the great things that it did, what lasting legacy do you take from those times that you feel have made and shaped you since then in the way in which you look and perceive the business?
I think it's really, I think live TV production really is kind of a team slash family sport, because you spend so much time with these folks, more so back then than now, because now you can kind of get away with everyone's kind of working from home, and you can, literally send video through a link nowadays, and they can download it and see it or stream it or whatever. Back then you had to, walk up and hand someone a tape, and that inevitably turned into, a relationship. So, ABC really was, our kind of, I'll say, lap there, in that group that, was probably about, 20 or 30 of us that existed on this floor. And we were all in kind of our mid, to late 20s, or some of us in our early 30s. It was a family. I mean, and, we were all young, single, working our butts off at ABC, and we loved what we did. And we wouldn't have been able to pull off what we did without everyone else's support. And on top of us, you had this kind of layer of folks there, some older folks who were really there during the heyday of, wide world of sports, what everyone kind of thinks of when they think ABC Sports. And we really kind of tried to kind of gain as much insight and storytelling knowledge from them. And it really was an amazing time, and something that, we've talked about this, I've talked about this with folks over the years, and we, obviously there's a huge nostalgia factor, but everyone, like, on that floor still has some kind of contact here and there. And, you look at who was on that floor, you got executive producers, now coordinating producers, vice presidents at ESPN that were PAs on that floor. And it's amazing to see kind of how everyone's, risen over the years, whether it's, I worked, shoulder to shoulder with Jared Boschneck, who's basically now running the show at Yes Network. Bryan Lockhart was my lead PA my second year, and he's now a VP at ESPN. You can just go up and down the aisle of the, Drew Kaliski, who, he's a coordinating producer, a studio producer at CBS, I believe at this point. And it's just all those guys and gals have just gone on and done tremendous things, and we just realized it really was like a family there. And everyone helped everyone out and tried to teach someone a little something along the way.
It was a harvest ground. It's cool to see how many at that stage have taken off as far as their careers. You, of course, being one of them. Storytelling is a big part of who you are and one of your biggest passions in why you got into this business. And how are you able to use that with NBA 2K and to sort of itch that love of storytelling, if you will?
So embedded in NBA 2K is a mode called My Career, where the user can basically inject themselves into a career, and inside of that career, we embed a story. So years ago, for 2K14, which we shot in 2013, it was just kind of a basic story of an up and comer who's making their way into the NBA, runs into a rival, and things like that. It was very rudimentary in terms of its storytelling. Fast forward a couple of years, it was we brought on Spike Lee, and he wrote and directed that story through My Career. And then fast forward past that, now you have this huge kind of like branching story that the user can take in any direction. You can pick kind of what your general disposition is. You can pick your agent. You can pick if you want to get into if you want to get into like a fashion thing or a music thing, you can pick kind of like I'll call it the side hustle. There's so many different you can basically, I mean, think back to like and maybe you remember this when you were a kid, like the choose your own adventure books.
Yeah.
You're kind of reading through it. It's like, if you want to attack the dragon, jump to page 52. If you want to leave, jump to page 49. It's the same kind of thing. You can kind of make your own story. And so that's been a real challenge, and it's been exciting too, is creating kind of this world and this huge branching story that anyone can kind of make their own unique tale out of.
How often, Jon, do you get lost in that world?
Pretty often, because you got to back out, because again, there's so many branches. You got to back out and look at it at 30,000 feet, because if you don't, you'll you'll lose the forest from the trees thing kicks in. So you kind of really got to understand, okay, where are we kind of starting the user, and what are the options for the end, and how are they getting there? There's other folks that we have on the game who can kind of get into the minutia, but a host of us have to kind of stay at 30,000 feet, so we can kind of really make sure that how we're sending the user along that path makes sense, and also is engaging and interesting.
Why do you think the game has been so engaging and interesting, and has been the most purchased NBA video game in quite some time now? What attracts it to the general population? And then to see all of the celebrities and the athletes that are always playing it and talking about it as well.
I think it's a pretty layered answer. I think first and foremost, the NBA as a just on the court product helps a lot. It's probably the sport where you have just visual recognition of the players. Obviously the NFL and baseball, it's a larger field. Football has the face mask obscuring. So there's really an opportunity to kind of really engage the actual NBA players in the game itself, because we go out and we shoot scenes with the players too, as you've seen. Some have been awesome, some have been less than awesome. I think there's a couple out there from our early years that have turned into a meme. But hey, you know what? Like I said, you're going to make some mistakes along the way. But I think first and foremost, it's the NBA product, which is really solid, and you have just engaging characters. Combine that, I think, with us on our side, we're not afraid to take risks. It was a really huge risk to kind of blow up, I'll say, the My Career mode back in 2013 and make it this fully engaged, kind of story. And other games have kind of like come along and essentially copied that to some degree. But we took something and just that was kind of already kind of occurring in video games in general, but just really kind of brought it in and refined it and really kind of gave it obviously a sports spin to it, because there's obviously a story to tell there. Combine that with, we have what is called the city in NBA 2K, which you can go online and play pickup games and things like that. So it really becomes kind of like a friend-to-friend engagement thing. I mean, all this talk about the metaverse and whatnot. Yeah, sure, it's interesting, but we've kind of already had something like that in NBA 2K for years already. You can scan your face in, put yourself into the game, give yourself an outfit, give yourself tattoos, change your hair. We've been doing that for years. So we've kind of the metaverse, or what Meta or Facebook is advertising, is kind of already there in the form of NBA 2K, and also too with obviously Fortnite and whatnot. But really, scanning your face in and putting your face in I think has also been a real attraction for a lot of folks, and just thrusting themselves into this game.
And so many, like you said, other entities have copied you guys. And I would assume in a way there's a little bit of flattery that you feel from that, but also a level of fulfillment in that we are taking risks and they're paying off because people are following us in what we're doing. Jon Corl is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. I want to leave you with this last question, Jon. And that is, with those big risks you have taken, your company has taken at NBA 2K, what is it like when you have the meeting of the minds for these decisions and it's like everybody getting together? What are those conversations like when you're going to try something new and everybody has to get on board, if you will?
It's very open, and it's very, everyone is like, let's just throw it out there. Like, we'll say some like pretty insane stuff, as far as, try to get the gears going. So it can be funny. It can be like vexing. It could be, you get into arguments. It's really kind of like an emotional mosh pit, really, of just like, think about, when anyone just kind of gets into a discussion about their favorite team or whatever, it's just like that, right? Yeah. It's just, someone comes in there advocating for something and it's like, no way, are we going to pull that off? We can't do that. What are you talking about? What? Oh, that's a great idea. Oh my God. And it's just one of these just kind of volleys between, 4 or 5 of us, 6 of us sometimes, about, what they think might be cool, and then how the hell do we pull it off? That is kind of the one part about that I really kind of underestimated going into video games. Was when I first got there, I was like, oh, all these ideas, yeah, we can pull these off in a year. You can't. You really kind of got to like pick and choose, because that calendar year gets really tight, and you only have so much time to put all these features into the game. Because like I said, I came from TV, where we're putting out, a new episode or, game, every other day. It's like, yeah, we can try stuff. This was like, oh man, we're not, putting this out until a year from now. We can put a ton of stuff in there. And so, everyone just kind of, I'll say dumps the idea cart, and that's where it just kind of gets interesting. And people just start throwing stuff out there, and people do fall in love with ideas, and which is good. But inevitably it becomes argument, jokes, laughter. But at some point you got to make a final decision, and that's the hard part. And how do you pull that off?
Well, those final decisions seem to be working out very well, and those ideas that you've been a big part of have led to some wonderful and great things happening at NBA 2K, and have also led to great things happening to things happening over the course of your career as well. Mm-hmm. Getting to feature you feature so many athletes in your work, but getting the opportunities to sort of turn the camera back on you, Jon, and feature you has been such a pleasure. Jon Corl, I'm Bryan Fenley. Jon, thank you for making time and giving us a look into your life, both professionally and as well as personally.
Yeah, you bet. Anytime.